I'm an anthropologist by training. My graduate work is in cultural anthropology, and so we study human organization, right? I'm not going to rely on anthropology, but I am going to rely on archaeology. And I want you to look at, I want to put leadership in the context to overcomplicate it, but this is just going to be momentary. Because what we're going to talk about are very simple things that we're all familiar with, but I want to put it in some theoretical context for you. So Stephen Jay Gould and Niles Eldredge in the early 70s came up with a theory of evolution that countered Darwinian theory of evolution. Darwinian theory is basically, if you think about a curve on a graph, Darwinian evolution is that species are in constant adaptation and change, right? And that curve is just a gradual straight line. And what Stephen Jay Gould and Niles Eldredge said was, no, it really doesn't happen that way. What happens is we go along in what they call a period of stasis, or where we're static, not changing. And then something big really happens, like we go to a motivational seminar, we hear Greg speak, or we have a death in the family, or the Ice Age comes and causes a big punctuation in that equilibrium that we maintain. So that's what punctuated equilibrium is. And at the time that it was introduced, it was pretty radical because the understanding of how species have developed over time was really deeply rooted in Darwinian theory. And but their theory has given us a really good way to look not just at how species evolve, but how we do. So just as an explanation, we're going along in our day-to-day lives and then bam, something happens, and usually it's something good and it raises up our performance level, and we make this transition and we go into this more highly motivated state for a little while. And that event is what I would label dynamic motivation. Going to hear somebody speak like Greg just did, where we're coming out, he had great things to say. I'm thinking about how I can apply those things. But what do I do to sustain myself in between now and the next time that I hear somebody like Greg? Is it possible? All of us have, we've heard great speeches, conferences, sermons, life-changing events. We get raised to this new level, but after a while, life takes over. The regular day-to-day demands of our life take over. And they can act like an anchor to us and sort of keep us from maintaining that high level of performance. So can we sustain it? Can we sustain that motivating event? Can we sustain that puncture to our equilibrium, right? And not only that, can we sustain it personally and professionally, but can we inspire other people to sustain their motivation as well? And I think that we can. So the JMH model of, those are my initials, JMH model of sustainable motivation. I'm just going to talk about one part of this model because I don't even think we have 45 minutes left now. But we're going to talk about what I label life-changing leadership. And everything that is in here are in groups of 4 or 3 ideas. And the reason that I do that is I prefer to think of things as stools or chairs. And if I have a 3-legged stool or a 4-legged stool, I can be pretty certain that when I sit on it or stand on it, it's going to be okay. If I go any less than that, it's shaky. If I go any more than that, it's probably overkill, right? So everything is going to be grouped in 3s and 4s. And we're just going to talk about that first point today. Kind of what Greg said, this is not what I perfectly practice all the time. But it is based on my experience up to this point, what I aspire to. And I think it's a pretty good formula. Again, simple ideas, but placed in that overcomplicated framework of punctuated equilibrium. Because I think it's really helpful for us to think about our motivational experiences like that. The other 2 parts of that are equally important. We're not going to cover today. Sustaining mind, body, and spirit. Eating, sleep, exercise, natural world experience, sustaining self and community, study, fellowship, service. You can buy the book. Just kidding. It's not really a book. So what are the four principles of life-changing leadership? They're not unfamiliar. They might be unfamiliar in the context of leadership development. I think Greg touched on many of them. But for me, they are listed in this order for a reason. The first three are necessary for me to engage in the fourth. And my engagement in the fourth and my commitment to the fourth is what enables me to sustain my own motivation and hopefully the motivation of other people. So let's start with the first one, humility. How do we define humility? Don't look at that. How would you define humility before looking at that? Okay. Putting others first. Helping others. A lot of people think that humility it necessarily involves thinking less of ourselves. And that's not what humility really involves. What humility involves is thinking of ourselves less, right? Putting others first. That's a lot easier said than done. But it's essential if we're going to be life-changing leaders, if we're going to change our own lives, if we're going to work to change the lives of other people. The very first thing we have to do is think of ourselves less. That means we have to think of others more, right? So, why is it essential to life-changing leadership? From my perspective, it's essential because in the environment in which we work, especially, job titles, positions, the hierarchy, other human constructs, they can really interfere in effective leadership. We can be tempted to fall into the trap of thinking they actually mean something. And in the human constructed world, they may have some meaning. But at the end of the day, in an eternal sense, they really have no meaning, right? We're all people. We're all inherently equal. Losing sight of the inherent inequality of all people precedes leadership failure. When we decide that I am, by virtue of my title, I'm in a different position than you are in life, I'm more important. When I decide by virtue of my position or my title, irrespective of my life experience or anything else, that I'm more important to the transportation cabinet than you are, or that I'm more important in any way than you are, that precedes my failure as a leader. I can't think that way. If I'm going to sustain my motivation, I'm going to sustain the motivation of the people that I'm charged with leading. So, how do we develop a habit of humility? How do we develop a habit of thinking of ourselves less without thinking less of ourselves? And this is the approach I'm going to use on all four of these ideas. Basically, let's define it. Let's come to some common agreement. Let's figure out why it's essential to life-changing leadership. And then let's get at some practical ways that we can make those a regular part of our everyday existence. So how do we develop a habit of thinking of ourselves less without thinking less of ourselves? And the first way to do that is to develop an understanding of and get into the practice of empathy. And empathy is not something that we think a lot about or a term that we use a lot, but it's necessary for me to understand Joe. It's necessary for me to understand Lori. I have to make an effort to put myself, to the extent that I can, based on the limited knowledge I have about the people with whom I work, I have to make an effort to put myself in their shoes. Greg said today, everybody has a story. We all have stories. We all have things that we could go, if we had time, we could go around the table and I could ask you to tell us something that has profoundly shaped your life, a life experience that nobody else knows around the table, and every one of you would have an experience to share, right? I would have an experience to share, and it's not something that we're in the habit of sharing, but it was a pivotal moment in our life. It was had a profound impact on us. So empathy is the way I'm defining it here is it's the capacity to understand or feel what another person is experiencing from that person's point of view. Trying to put ourselves in the shoes of other people. When I do that, and when Sam knows that I'm being empathic with him, and I'm trying to understand where he's coming from, that's going to have the natural effect of Sam wanting to openly communicate with me. And that genuine communication that results from my being empathic as a leader is going to help sustain his motivation and sustain my motivation in the things that we work on together. The second part of that is compassion, and that's different than empathy, because compassion is where this is understanding, compassion is the response. And all of us go through hard times. All of us have difficult challenges at work. All of us have difficult challenges in our personal lives. All of us confront those challenges in different ways. But as a leader, if I'm not compassionate with the people that I'm working with, then I'm not fully engaged in practicing humility. I'm not thinking less of myself. So empathy and compassion. And then the last part of that is grace. There's nobody in here that hasn't benefited from grace. Well, what is grace? It's freely given unmerited favor and love. All of us have benefited in one way or another from freely given and unmerited favor and love. Either from our families, from our parents, from a friend, from a spouse. My wife is in the regular habit of giving me grace. Grace that oftentimes I don't deserve, right? It's not merited. I haven't earned it. Well, I've got to be in a position to extend that to other people too. If I'm going to sustain motivation by practicing humility. So just a three-legged reminder of humility and the importance of it to life-changing leadership is reminding myself that everybody has a story. And here's a key. Everybody has a right to be wrong. Everybody has a right to be wrong. We're all products of our experience. We don't arrive at the same place at the same time. But Latasha has a right to be wrong as much as I have a right to be wrong, and I'm wrong a lot. Right? But that's where empathy, compassion, and grace comes in. When Lori's wrong, I have to extend Lori grace in how I communicate about that if I happen to benefit from a set of facts that Lori doesn't have available to her. Everybody has a right to be wrong, and everybody benefits from grace. That's humility. That's the part one of this four-part model of sustaining motivation. What do you think about that? How does that apply to what you're doing?
When you first started, I was in the parking garage and somebody parked halfway into another spot.
This is an important subject for Sam.
It's very important.
The parking garage is an important area.
And I was sitting there raging about it.
And it's become important for me because it's important.
And I was telling you, can you believe these jerks park like this? And he looks at me and he says, man, that's a good opportunity to offer somebody some grace. And I was like, oh yeah.
Anybody else? How does humility relate to your motivation? How do you think there's anything to this? How you might be able to integrate humility in sustaining your motivation? How so, Latasha?
I mean, I think I can use humility in my day-to-day as far as at least I try to do it in any way, and live about others and not solely about myself. And I try to give empathy, and I do ask people what their story is. I think all of that's important.
Yeah. Okay. I've got to move fast because I got a lot. I crammed too much in here and I got a lot to cover. So, but hopefully all of this. My goal was to for all of us to come away with something practical, some practical things that we can implement on a daily basis to help us sustain that motivation that we might get from hearing great speeches or great talks or going to great conferences. So let's go on to the next one. And the next one is gratitude. And gratitude is pretty simple. The quality or feeling of being grateful or thankful. What is gratitude the opposite of? You can't say ingratitude. What's it the opposite of? If I say gratitude and I ask you to say the opposite, what's the opposite of gratitude?
Unappreciative.
Unappreciative, entitled, what else? Ungrateful. What about complaining? I have a really strong tendency to focus on what's not right. My story is my dad was killed by a drunk driver when I was 4 years old. My mother hadn't graduated from high school yet. My dad had a 6th grade education. My mother was left with a 13-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 4-year-old. And that event had a really fundamental effect on my life because I grew up, I developed a habit of thinking that everybody had it better than I did, right? Especially my friends that had dads, had both parents. Everybody had it better than I did. So I grew up with a habit of envy and jealousy and want and desire rather than a habit of having a mother who busted her tail to finish high school. When I was in 8th grade, started college at age 44, finished at U of L in 4 years and went on to work as an academic counselor at the speed school for 25 years. That habit of ingratitude, that habit of envy and jealousy is really difficult to get out of when you're in that rut. But there's nothing more powerful than a life based on gratefulness, based on gratitude. So why is gratitude essential to life-changing leadership? Why is it one of the 4 parts here? Well, one reason is that gratitude, by definition, makes us less self-centered. It enables us to engage in humility, to not think less of ourselves, but to think of ourselves less. The very nature of gratitude is to focus on other people, the world outside of us, taking note that there's a lot that all of us have to be grateful for. What's good in other people? Who's the most, I don't want you to say this out loud, who's the most difficult person that you work with on a daily basis? Does everybody have a difficult person that you work with on a daily basis? And maybe they're not difficult daily, but they're consistently difficult. Is that yes? Is everybody in that position? What's good in that person? It's really difficult that's challenging for us to try and do, especially when the person is both difficult and unlikable, which oftentimes goes hand in hand. But there's inherent worth, there's inherent value. My wife has the habit, it's really annoying, of reminding me that difficult people are my best teachers. And it's annoying because it's true. Because I don't want to apply myself to learning lessons from difficult people. What I would prefer to do is to judge them and to compare them to what I think they ought to be, rather than fully appreciating them for where they are, who they are, and remembering that they have a story. I don't know how they got to be difficult. I don't know what they've been through. And most of the time with difficult people that I work with, I don't bother asking them because they're difficult. But the fact of the matter is they do have a story, and they do have inherent value, and that inherent value is no less than the inherent value that I have. Gratitude boosts our career. Gratitude makes us more effective managers. It helps us to network. It increases our decision-making capabilities, increases our productivity, and it helps us get mentors and proteges, the opposite of mentors, the people that we would be a mentor to. Why do you think that is? Why does gratitude boost? Why would I say gratitude boosts our careers? Yeah, but why? Why would it help? Why would being grateful help
Well,
in
I
networking?
saw this, I was actually, you didn't say it, but I like this quote by Maya Angelou.
Yeah, I forgot that.
I learned that people never forget, or will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. They kind of goes along those lines, you know, make people feel good or appreciated or wanted. That helps you, in return because they want to do the same for you.
Yeah. So if we're grateful for people, then we're making them feel like we're grateful for them, and they forever remember that. That doesn't go away. They're going to forget what I said. They're going to forget what I did, chances are, but they're not going to forget how what I said and what I did made them feel. But how else why would I say gratitude boosts our career? No.
Invest in someone. For instance, I know Joey and Tasha and myself, I know what our level is in the capital.
Yeah.
We're section supervisor. If you invest in people, doesn't matter if it's your peers, or your supervisors, or those who are subordinate to you, those people are going to invest in you, and they're going to appreciate you more, and they're going to follow you. Especially, I know at our level, and personally, you and I have worked on some pretty high level things where I've had to lead people who were several levels
In a
above
different
me.
place in the hierarchy.
Assistant directors and directors. And,
Yeah.
For someone like me or anyone to be effective, you have to invest in the people that you're working with. Otherwise, like you said, they're not going to remember you. They're not going to care. They're not going to appreciate your position. You can have all the knowledge in the world, but if someone's not invested in you, you're not going to influence them. Gratitude influences people.
Yeah. Gratitude, being grateful for people influences them for sure. How does a mindset of gratefulness affect how we feel about ourselves? If we're in the habit of envy and jealousy and complaining, we're not in the habit of thinking very highly of where we are at a particular time in our lives. We're not very self-confident. People don't like talking to people who lack self-confidence. But if I'm in the habit of noting something that I'm grateful for on a regular basis, that reminds me that, you know what? I got it really good. It could be so much worse. I didn't grow up without parents. I grew up with one parent who deeply loved me and dedicated her life to me. I lost my dad, but I wouldn't change my life. I wouldn't go back and reverse that event. Because I grew up with a mother that completely self-sacrificial, just placed all of us above everything that she did. It could be so much worse. If I'm in the habit of noting what's good in my life, then I'm just going to be more able to convey that confidence that comes from gratitude to other people. And
Attitude as opposed to everything.
yeah, it's no more complicated than that. Gratitude makes our memories happier. Going back to Maya Angelou, I can forget that mean thing that Joey said. I can forget that mean thing that Latasha did. But if I remind myself that Joey may have been having a bad day when he said that. He's got a lot going on outside of here, and he may have had something dealing with things at home that prompted him to be short with me, and I know that Joey is an exemplary person, and I'm really grateful for A, B, and C with Joey. And that being grateful can make my memory of what Joey means to me happier. And that's just forgiveness is all that is, right? And forgiveness is an essential part of gratitude. If I can't extend the forgiveness that other people routinely extend to me, I'm in constant need of forgiveness, you all. If I can't routinely regularly extend forgiveness to other people, I can't expect to get it. I'm told that in numerous ways. But experiencing gratitude in the present makes us more likely to remember positive memories and can actually transform some of our negative ones. So, moving along, how do we develop a habit of being grateful or thankful? It doesn't come naturally to a lot of us. It does not come naturally to me. Well, I try to come up with some simple ways of developing a habit of gratefulness. And I think that it's not too much to ask for us to identify 3 things on a daily basis for which we're grateful. Once we get into that habit, it's like addictive. And you don't want to stop at 3 things. You want to start looking around and noting as many things as you can find. Because the feedback, the motivation, the energy that you get from a spirit of gratefulness it's empowering, it's motivating, it's sustaining. So 3 things, each day think of 3 things for which you're grateful. 3 things. Can you name 3 things for which you're grateful right now?
Yes, my family, my job, and that I have a vehicle to get.
Okay. 3 things?
My
Thanks for being first.
my health, my family too. The 1-year-old son just had his birthday on Tuesday.
All
so
right.
Thankful for he's healthy and all that, and then having a job that a career path that I chose, and I don't with it.
3 things. Tasha.
Family, job, obviously, and good health.
Okay.
Devout Christian, so you take Christ out of Christian, and Ian's not going to do anything for you. So Christ, very grateful for Christ, very grateful for my wife, very grateful for my kids.
Okay. Joey.
I would think my faith in one, and my wife and family, and my job.
I guess family, faith, and my dog.
Your job or your dog?
My dog.
Your job.
My dog too.
Your dog too.
Yeah.
Family.
Right.
Yeah, I think we all kind of have the same core values.
Yeah.
It's kind of really hard to pick 3 because everyone else has definitely got it. You have your faith, you have your job, you have your family, your health, etc. It's we're all.
Yep. Sam.
Jesus Christ as my Savior, my family, and I guess thinking out of the box, I really am grateful for some of the hard times I've had. It's hard to say that.
Yeah.
It made me who I am.
Yeah. And Lori's right. We do all share the same values. The one thing I would add to that, though, is that the extent to which I'm engaged daily in gratefulness and thinking about the things for which I'm grateful opens up other doors for me to see things that I'm grateful for that I may not have noticed. I sleep most nights, even in the winter, with my window open. And I love spring because I wake up to what? Birds. I feed birds all around my house. And that interaction with natural creation first thing in the morning, I'm deeply grateful for that. Deeply grateful for that. I have a son. I'm grateful that I have 2 kids graduating from college next month. Right? I'm grateful for that for a number of reasons. I'm grateful for a son who he's headed to law school, and he desperately wanted to get a fellowship working on something called the Innocence Project. So rather than going to law school to devote himself to corporate law and make as much money as he possibly could, I have a son who wants to help exonerate people who have been wrongfully convicted by the justice system. What shame does that bring our family, Well, it doesn't really, right? So reminding myself of job, family, and health, those are critically important, but being in the habit of that enables me to notice other parts of my life that I'm not in the habit of reminding myself that I'm grateful for. Okay? Think of the most difficult person in your life at a given time and identify something for which to be grateful about them. Can everybody, you don't have to name who your person is, although that'd be fun. But think of the most difficult person in your life and think right now about one thing that you can be grateful for about that person, and just raise your hand when you've done that. So you've got one thing. Joey, you raised a finger? It's a really powerful way of developing a spirit of gratitude, a spirit of gratefulness. And start this is one of those things that you hear at workshops like this that we rarely go home and do, but I am telling you that in the past 5 years I've done this, and it's been one of the most transformative things in my life, is daily recording things that I'm grateful. And some days they do repeat, but other days my mind is open and my eyes and my heart is open to things I didn't realize I was grateful for. And it's transformative. So that's three ways of developing a habit. The three-legged reminder of gratitude: say thank you more often. Spend more time outside. And why would I say that? Yeah, there's something about connecting with creation that is really invigorating and energizing, and can remind us quickly to be thankful. And then the last thing is, and this is hard to do if you're not in the habit of doing it, but really thinking about what happened in the day prior to going to sleep, and reminding yourself that of things for which you can be grateful that happened during that day. Okay, got to move along. Rigorous honesty, life-changing leadership, and rigorous honesty. So how do we define rigorous honesty? Telling the truth all the time, even when it's supposedly easier to lie. Sharing thoughts and feelings, even when there may be consequences. I'm going to guess that all of us at one time or another have been dishonest. And maybe it's not what we consider to be grave dishonesty. Maybe it's a little white lie. But a little white lie is a what? It's a lie. And little white lies develop really dangerous habits that can lead to chronic deceit, chronic dishonesty. So, why is rigorous honesty essential to life-changing leadership? Being rigorously honest is liberating. There's nothing more freeing in life than being rigorously honest with myself first, and rigorously honest with other people. When we're free from dishonesty, we are able to live more humbly, and we're able to live more gratefully. The reason for that is rigorous honesty allows us to be fully in the present moment. If I don't have to worry about something I said to Joey that wasn't untrue, I don't have to worry about saying the next thing to Joey to cover up what I said to him that wasn't untrue. If I'm living fully in the present moment by virtue of being rigorously honest, my motivation is sustained. I'm able to be empathic with him. I'm able to regularly practice humility. I'm able to be grateful for him because I'm able to see things. I hate to keep picking on Joey, but he just happens to be sitting in that spot. But I'm able to see things in Joey for which I'm fully grateful. If I'm not worried about what I've said, even the little white lies that aren't true, if I'm not worried, if I don't have that baggage, if I'm not in bondage to that, then I'm free to see Joey for who he was made to be, right? And he is inherently equal to me. Rigorous honesty transforms us from false pride to authentic self-respect. when I am being honest with myself, it's a lot easier for me to respect myself for who I am. If I'm engaged in chronic deceit, chronic dishonesty, that's a surefire way to destroy my image of myself. It's a surefire way to allow forces of darkness to sort of penetrate my belief about who I am. And if I'm respectful of myself, then I'm generally going to get a higher level of respect from other people. How do we develop a habit of honesty all the time? How do we regularly practice rigorous honesty? First thing we have to do is come to realize that being honest with ourselves is the most important form of rigorous honesty. It's super easy to be dishonest with ourselves. It's super easy to rationalize our behavior. It's easy for us to place our own interest above those of others because we deserve it. All of that's really easy. The world makes that available to us freely, right? But we have to be honest with ourselves before we can be honest with other people. And the first thing that we have to be honest with ourselves about is that we engage in dishonesty. Immediately admit dishonesty to yourself and another person. Now, why would I say that you have to admit dishonesty to yourself and another person? Accountability. And man, there is nothing that will put the clamps on dishonesty faster than me going to Lori and saying, Lori, I got to tell you something. I was dishonest about this. And hearing myself say that and recognizing that I'd fallen short is a really powerful form of accountability. I can't just do it to myself. I can't just do it to God. I have to do it with another person. Come to realize that half measures avail us nothing when it comes to rigorous honesty. Rigorous honesty. It's not partial honesty. It's not little white lies are okay. It's not lies of omission are okay. And that is the fourth point there. Learn the different kinds of lies that we consciously or subconsciously engage in. Outright lies, those are pretty easy. You construct a big story to cover up something that you don't want people to know about. Little white lies, the things that we want to do to protect somebody from being hurt. And then lies of omission, those are the most powerful ones that can take us down a slippery slope faster than anything else. What I don't tell Lori that ought to be included in the audit. Lies of omission. Because then those are super easy to justify. Well, I didn't tell her that because I didn't want to hurt her feelings. Or I didn't tell her that because if I'd have told her that would have opened up a whole other door in terms of that audit, and we just didn't need to go there. That, she was just auditing Joey's section, and we were just focused on Joey's section, even though I knew something about Joey's section that I didn't tell her. Those lies of omission are powerful forces. So, three-legged reminder of rigorous honesty. Kindness is indispensable. Rigorous honesty should never injure others. That goes back to grace. It goes back to forgiveness. Freedom always follows truth. And self-respect equals respect from other people. And I can't respect myself if I'm not adhering to being rigorously honest. Okay. Last point, and some of you may recognize my sources for a lot of this, but how do we define genuine communication? It's only enabled by humility, gratitude, and rigorous honesty. Genuine communication is characterized by being quick to listen, being slow to speak, and being slow to anger. If I'm quick to listen, if I'm slow to speak, and I'm slow to anger, that opens up a whole new way of communicating with coworkers, spouses, children, community members, church members, if I recognize that what I have to say may not be the most important thing for people to hear, if I recognize that people have a right to be wrong, if I recognize that everybody has a story, I can remind myself that I'm not nearly as smart as I think I am most of the time. I can benefit from what other people have to say to me. Quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. So why is it essential to life-changing leadership? Genuine communication is humility in action. Being quick to listen automatically places the interest of others ahead of my own. Genuine communication is gratitude in action. Being slow to speak allows us to pause and take note of those things for which we are grateful about the person with whom we're communicating. And genuine communication is rigorous honesty in action. And rigorous self-honesty, in my experience, is the perfect antidote to anger. Because if Latasha says something that I feel that I'm deciding I'm going to get angry about, Latasha can't make me angry, y'all. My kids can't make me angry. Nobody can make me angry other than me. I'm the only one who, unless I surrender that control to you, if I give up that control to Latasha for her to make me angry, then she can make me angry. But as long as I'm reminding myself that I can't naturally get angry by the actions of somebody else unless I decide to be. And if I'm honest with myself and I recognize that I have my own shortcomings, I have a lot for which I need to be forgiven, I'm in daily need of grace, then it's a lot more difficult for me to justify anger. And it's empowering in being slow to anger. So how do we develop this habit of genuine communication? Listening takes practice. We're not encouraged to listen. In our political system today, listening is not a virtue that's admired by many people. It's not lifted up as something to be replicated, but it's essential to life-changing leadership. Listening takes practice. Give yourself grace. Taming our tongue takes discipline. Give yourself grace. Slowing our anger requires humility, gratitude, and rigorous honesty. Give yourself grace. Because that grace is freely available and unmerited, right? And we have to extend it to ourselves before we're in any position to extend it to other people. So, three-legged reminder of genuine communication is the same as the first part. Quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. And that they are in a nutshell, the 4 principles of life-changing leadership as I've come to understand. So what do you think?